So welcome everybody to another fabulous Fumes for Friday event sponsored by the Tampa Bay Area Writing Project. I'm Dr. Mike Sherry, co-director, and I'm very excited to be here with you tonight and to hear from TBAWP teacher consultant Olwyn Watson. And before I turn it over to Olwyn, woohoo! Before I turn it over, because we have some folks here tonight who are joining us for the first time, I'm going to invite you each to introduce yourselves, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about just some guidelines for the night. So while you're thinking about what you're going to say about who you are and where you're from and what we need to know about you, and you can keep it very brief, please. You should know that what we're doing tonight is much like what we do at our Summer Leadership Institute, where teachers gather to write, to share their writing, to share thoughts about the teaching of writing. So we're going to hear a lesson. There's going to be invitations to write, and then to share your writing and talk about how you might do this with your own students. And I know it's going to be great. Every time I hear Olwyn, I walk away feeling like I was part of something good. So let's start with those introductions. So I'm Dr. Mike Sherry. I work in the College of Education at USF. And something you should know about me is that today I planted a whole bunch of lavender seeds with my wife and daughter. There you go. All right. And so I'm going to go in around the boxes here. So Mr. Eric, you're next.
Hey, I'm Eric Vana. I work at Steinbrenner High School teaching creative writing and AP Lit now, which I'm pretty stoked about. And apparently admin likes me, so they're going to keep it that way. And a few Fumes for Fridays ago, you guys saw me making tea instead of drinking my way through the evening. And my wife bought me more of the tea that she discovered I liked. So Earl Grey creme it is.
But you've got a Jen shirt on, so that
yeah, the night is still young, Mike.
Right. Very good. All right, thank you. And so Courtney.
Hello. My name is Courtney Nickel, and I also teach I teach at Steinbrenner High School, but not at Steinbrenner High School. I teach in my office. But I will be there tomorrow, which is very exciting. My first time there since the summer, and a little nervous, but excited. Something interesting about me is I love to make like decals and cups and shirts, and that's become like my side hustle business now. And so it's my other creative outlet other than writing. So
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going around the boxes here to Jenny Franklin.
Hi, I'm Jenny Franklin. I teach over in Pasco County at Sunray Elementary. It's a Title I school. I teach 4th grade. And something interesting about me, I guess, is I'm kind of looking forward to hurricane season because I did do the NOAA Teacher in the Air program. And I do get to do another flight. I couldn't do it last summer because of COVID. So I don't want to say I'm looking forward to hurricanes, but I'm looking forward to hurricanes so I can go on another flight into another hurricane. Yay.
Wow.
And write about it.
Right on. Thanks for that. Owen, I'm going to end up with you. So I'm going to move to our guests next. So I see a person waving in the middle. Go ahead.
I love that I just use my initials so no one ever knows how to introduce me on these Zoom calls. But hi, I'm Annalise. I teach 12th grade English at Riverview High School. And something interesting about me is that I just started a podcast. It's called Star Wars English Class. It's me and my friend talking about things we might discuss. We're both English teachers, the things we might discuss in class, but we apply them to Star Wars. So you can find it anywhere you get your podcasts.
Love it.
Cool. And then I see we have, thank you. We have somebody here appearing as One Touch Direct, which I'm guessing isn't, your name, but if it is, you're welcome.
It's Bob. It's Bob Schwartz. Yeah. Sorry, I put it in the chat. Is that Eric? Hey, everybody. My main involvement with TBAWP is I get to do the privilege of doing the camps and having a lot of fun with fellow TCers and students that give new meaning to Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Hey, Bob.
Great.
Hi, Courtney.
All right. And without further ado, I end up with Olwyn.
Hello, I'm Olwyn Watson, TBAWP 2017. Currently, well, let me back up. Elementary school teacher by day. This year, I am a supervisor of interns at USF. I'm finishing up my coursework for my doctoral degree this semester. If the College of Graduate Studies can get my paperwork right, and then I'll be going on into the rest of what's going to take forever. No, that long just to write 300 pages or so. It's all good. So tonight I'm here to share with you a little bit about what I did with my interns this year, because there was some writing involved. Through the teacher ed program, we instruct them. They have clinical hours where they're actually in classrooms, but then we have seminars where we teach them things. So we are really focused on teaching them about their identity, about cultures, because sometimes, a lot of times, they're going to get up in front of students and they may not have a connection to students. So it's about building relationships. So that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. So we shall. And can you see my screen? Everybody see that iceberg? Yes, no?
It takes a second. Hold on.
Oh.
There it is.
Yay. Okay. So this is Beyond the Surface, being culturally responsive. And I'm just going to go through a few slides and kind of talk you through it, and then we will get to writing. So this is a lot of what I shared with them, as the College of Ed teacher prep program is really slated to immerse the students in real life situations. They are in the classroom for multiple hours per week, multiple days per week. And then when they end up in final internship, they're actually in the field every day. So this is a little cartoon that I found, and it's really speaks volumes. And it talks about culture. So culture includes social groups and environment. But as it says in the cartoon, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. And Albert Einstein said, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So that's kind of the premise of what we want to go for. We really want to understand students, and I want them to understand the students who they are going to be in front of teaching. So it's about learning who they are first, learning what their identity is, what makes them who they are. So some of the essential questions that we started with were, what is identity? How is your identity developed? How does identity affect your relationships? And the objectives for that were to define what shapes identity, their own identity, and explore the connections between identity and teaching. To that end, I then would explain to them what culturally responsive is. It's using cultural knowledge, prior experiences, and performance styles for diversity of students to make learning more appropriate and effective for them. So making a connection to the students from what they know from not in school to what they can do academically in school. And it includes 4 conditions, which is inclusion, learning, meaning, and connecting. And the one we really want to talk about is learning, relating it to student experiences. So they come in with all of this prior knowledge. How can we use that to get them to understand things a little bit better? And then I would talk to them about some of the definitions of cultural capital, culturally based values that contribute to their success, acknowledge and understanding. And the real one that we hit on is seeking to include culture into diverse learning. So the first step in that is understanding who they are as a person, their identity. A lot of the teacher candidates, this was their first time being away. Well, when they got to USF, their first time being away from home. So they ran into a lot of cultures, a lot of diversity, a lot of things that they were not used to. They need to know how to navigate through that because they're going to be standing up in front of children who don't necessarily look like them, who don't have the same experiences as them. So getting them to understand what their core beliefs and their values are, and then we go into them actually understanding what that means for them as a teacher, helps them to understand the students that they are in front of teaching. One thing that the elementary ed program does, and it kind of immerses them right in it, is they use a format for lesson planning that is very extensive. It's like a 6-page lesson plan, which we know in reality, you are not going to just do one lesson for 6 pages, but they train them this way to kind of get them into the routine of this component needs to be there. Here's the next component. Here's the next component. So this is the box that would always trip them up. And it's the first box on the lesson plan. And the 2 questions are, how does this lesson connect to the interests and cultural backgrounds of your students? And how does this lesson connect to or reflect the local community? These 2 questions give them stress all the way from the beginning of the program to the end of the program. But it's just getting them to understand it doesn't always have to deal with their ethnicity. It can deal with what their interests are. You have to take an interest in your students so they really want to buy into what you're telling them. So you build those relationships, and that's what it comes from. So here's an example of what one of them used. And she did a science lesson on it, and at the end, it was a root beer float lab, and it was just talking about the states of matter. And she knew this would be a good one for them because they enjoy sweets, they enjoy treats. So that was a way that she actually got them involved in and being interested in their interests. And they knew that she really cared about them because she actually listened to them when they talked about what they liked. So we're going to do a little quick exercise to get you in touch with your identity. I'm going to show you several things that we use. This is one of them. It's just, all of these are like identity wheels or culture wheels. This is one of them that has, you just put like 3 adjectives down about yourself. And it could be any of these things on the outside of the wheel. How many siblings you have, your birth order, favorite music, one skill you're proud of, favorite movie, favorite book, favorite food. The one we use with the teacher candidates is the circles of identity for the PASIO circles of identity. So we just let them kind of build it on their own. You put your name in the middle, and then you just tell like 5 identifying things about yourself. And then we would give them this little wheel on the side to kind of give them ideas. You can talk about your age, your race, your mental ability, sexual orientation, your appearance, religion, any of these on the outside. So if you would take out a piece of paper and just put a circle in the middle with your name, and then on the outside, just give us like 5 things about yourself that you are willing and open to share, because we're going to be sharing these things out in the next couple of slides. So I'll give you about 3 minutes to get that done. Got about 1 minute left. Okay. If anybody needs like a couple of more seconds, just wave at me real quick. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to share out and kind of debrief this. So first question, with which descriptors do you identify the most strongly with and why? If anybody wants to unmute and tell me which one you identify the most strongly with and why. You can share your descriptors and then tell us which one is your strongest one. Bueller, anyone?
So I found that I just started like hurriedly putting down ones that I could think of. And then I realized that I think that most of the ones that I immediately put down had to do with family things. You know, I put down that my parents divorced when I was 4, that I'm an older brother by 11 years, you know, Irish and German background, stuff like that. So immediately kind of went to that without really even thinking about it.
Okay. Anyone else?
For me, queer identity was really big. I both identify as like lesbian/queer and also as genderqueer. So that appeared in both the sexuality and gender components for me and were the first things that came to mind.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Let's have one more person share out and then I'll get to one of the other questions.
Could you go back to that slide? Because I didn't jot down one of them that I was looking at. I wanted to share. If you don't mind.
Was it this one?
Yes, yes, yes. So if I could share the ones that came out to me was like Dr. Sherry, definitely family, because identifying myself so much as a mom. And it was interesting how I thought mom before wife. Like I kind of reminded myself that I'm a wife too. But so mom came first, and then the language and communication skills, because I'm bilingual. I grew up in Greece, and speaking Greek is a big part of my identity, especially because I do not appear very Greek. So it's almost more deep rooted because it's like, it's still, you know, like inside of me, like it's the language itself that I identify with rather than what I look like. So is that language skill, because I often think of things in Greek first.
If I could hop in, Olwyn, before you move on.
Yeah.
I think strangely mine was job experience. in terms of something that I felt like I had a lot to put down about and a lot to draw on and a lot of experience that I felt like defines who I am. I mean, my other one was maybe family, like Mike. But I think in asking, when you first asked the question, like, what do you identify most strongly with? I was struggling with that. And I think, like, as a white male, I found a lot of these were just like I was repeating myself, and that's a privilege I have to be aware of. But then when the one I had the most to say about was job experience. That was the thing that I felt like I've had unique experiences that I often write about and share about. So
I'm gonna go since I'm the last one. I guess religion was the one that I tended to identify more with, because I felt like it encompassed a lot of the things that, I hold and the values that I have. So I put that I'm a Methodist, but I'm not identifying as one right now because this goes into all these other things, but they broke away. There's a whole big controversy with gay marriage and things like that. So it also goes with the values of that I'm an ally. And so I'm in this limbo type thing. And it also goes with core values of I feel like we should treat other people the way we want to be treated. And then it does tie into family because I do want my children to be raised in a Christian faith that has values, but that also honors the people that go to church there and respects them. So I feel like it really ties into a lot of who I am, even though I'm in this limbo area.
So, and this question isn't up there, but this is a question that came up in one of the seminars because we started talking about color blindness. If you had to take away one of your identifiers, which one would it be? And how would that impact, or could you, without it impacting who you are as a person? So for example, the one that I used with the students was, I'm a mom, I'm married, I'm Christian, I'm African-American, I use my education. And then I said to them, so if I had to take one of those away, that would be like taking a part of who I am away, like a layer of my identity. So when you look at, because I know there was this huge catchphrase and it was used a lot last year, especially with all of the everything that was going on with social justice. The first thing everybody wanted to say was, oh, well, I don't see color. Well, there's a problem with that because if you don't see color, then you're not seeing part of who I am. So you're saying you're ignoring part of who I am just so you can appear to sound politically correct. So I was pointing out to them, when you do that, it's like somebody is taking away a part of who you are. Like that part's not important to us. So we'll just put it over there. But it is important because it's encompassing of who people really are. So you can't, like, if I said to Courtney, well, I'm taking your religion away. I'm taking away the Christianity. Okay. How can you do that without that being a part of who Courtney is? So it's getting to know the child or the student as the whole person. I know another thing that we talked about was, and it's on like a later slide, but we did this article called Taco Tuesday because it was around Hispanic Heritage Month. And I, in my own mind, didn't know them as well as I thought I did. I knew some of them were of Hispanic heritage, but there came this whole debate and seminar because there was this school in the Midwest, and I won't say which state, this is an actual article. When it came time for Hispanic Heritage Month, the only thing they did was they would serve tacos and they would have somebody dress the way they thought people would dress and this whole thing because they really didn't know. So a lot of the girls were like, oh, well, they did that at my school when I was growing up. So, and they really didn't think anything of it. Well, and so we were like, okay, were there Hispanic people at your school? Well, yeah, they like tacos. And it's like, do you know they like tacos? Or are you just assuming because so it became this whole thing. And then some of the girls were in debate because, first of all, people look at me and say I'm Hispanic. I'm not Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican. And so then they just went into this whole thing. And it was a good, healthy, it was one of the best seminars we had, because they just started talking about things that have to do with race and religion and their femininity and their not being feminine, and just a whole bunch of things came out and it was brought to the table. I said, these are the type of discussions. I said, probably not this in depth because you're going to be teaching elementary students, but when you get in front of these students, you've got to get them to know each other so they respect each other's differences, they respect who each other are. And it was just, from then on, their lesson plans looked different. Everything looked different, just because I like asked one question and then I just didn't say anything and I let them take it from there. So they worked out a lot of these things on their own. So that being said, we are going to, in the essence of time, because I want to give you all time to write. So I'm going to show you what you're going to be writing about. And then I want us to have a lot of time to share at the end. So taking those pieces of your identity and who you are, and a lot of times we do like 3 rounds of it. So people really have a lot of information about who they are. What insights would you gain about an identity activity? What insights did you gain from the activity about your identity? And how might these insights influence you as a teacher? So the reason I really became interested in this was the last few years I was in the classroom, there was always an influx of, oh, if there's a Black student that has an issue, we'll take them to Miss Watson. And so I started like looking at, and then I started looking at, okay, why am I the one that gets these students? And it was from a place, some of it was from a place of, I had their siblings, so I had a relationship with their parents, and this whole thing. And I was like, yes, I understand that, but why am I the only one who has a relationship with the parents? This is where the problem is. So that became a whole thing. And then there were some students that were in my class, and I was starting to look like, okay, what barriers do I have? What biases am I having towards this student, whether it be because I know they have a history of XYZ, or I know the family has a history of XYZ. And if I'm looking at this from an African-American teacher looking at these other little African, Black and brown children, like, okay, I'm having a bias against you for something that's probably not anything that has to do with you. I had to start taking a look at myself and my practices and who I was and what makes me who I am as a person, and then what makes me who I am as an educator. So that's where this whole idea of really getting in touch with identity came from. And just talking to people and professors and understanding there's a lot of insights that you grow up with, a lot of things that you come into education with that influence who you are as a teacher. So that's what I want us to write about tonight. What are those insights that influence you as a teacher that have to deal with your identity? So I'm going to give you some time to write, and then I'm going to share the writing that I've been working on about this same topic. So you can turn the camera off for about 15 minutes because I want to give us enough time to share, so we can just go ahead and write, and we'll be back with you then. Hey, and thank you. Who would like to share?
I can go. I did a little bit of a different spin on this, but I'm kind of very happy with it. So, pieces of paper strewn across my desk. Flat pieces of paper, ordinary pieces of lined paper filled with the most recent assessment of my students. But is it a true assessment? Does it truly assess what they know and how they feel and who they are? Mass-produced pieces of paper are meant to be recipients of knowledge. They're meant to retain and retell. But there are more of these one-dimensional pieces that lay before me. While they all look the same, they're quite the opposite. One has a name atop, a name of a three-dimensional person, a unique person with their own thoughts and their own beliefs and their own identity. Families they return to each day, experiences that have shaped them, obstacles they have overcome, problems that are currently plaguing them. It's my job to celebrate the exceptionality of these papers, to find the beauty and celebrate it, to remember that though these papers look and seem the same, the content is different. Because it doesn't matter the type of paper, it doesn't matter where it was purchased from or how it's created or whether it has lines or not, it matters what lies within.
That was good. Mine turned a little cathartic. Uh-oh. All right. True story, okay? Yesterday, I asked my kids if I was their first Black teacher. About half the class raised their hands to say yes. Seeing that I grew up in the same community, never had a Black teacher, I was not surprised. I told them my story of taking African-American literature as a freshman in college so that I could finally say that I had a Black teacher once in my life. Then I asked how many of them remember taking note on the first day of school that I was their first Black teacher. Only a couple did. The rest said they didn't really think about it. A fact that I really think is a testament to this current generation who seem to make up their own minds a lot more than my generation did and love others more freely. It was interesting to note that the only students who said they instantly thought about it were the 2 Black students in my class. We shared a glance when they raised their hands that spoke everything that was unsaid. When doing the activity today with you, it was interesting that my strongest identifiers were everything but race. But in my professional life, it's the first one I go to. So much of why I am in the classroom is the inverted mirror of who I wasn't as a student. I wasn't seen, I wasn't nurtured, I wasn't championed, I wasn't uplifted, and I wasn't educated in the one thing that mattered, my limitless potential that I had to discover on my own. But I'm not a victim. This invisibility led me to take the role of the people who were invisible to me, faceless people from my past who only noticed me when we were reading a novel about a Black character. I always assumed they were just happy I posed no trouble, no cause to reduce points and take up their time. So when I'm in the classroom now, I take that identity with me, breaking barriers and stereotypes in my community and making sure that no child is unnoticed. No child is without a champion. Every child is safe and seen in my room, no matter how that child may identify. Thanks.
Anyone else want to share?
I do. But man, it's hard to follow that. That was so good. And I'm just feeling it. I think I'm gonna just talk about what I wrote for a minute here because it kind of went all different places, and I think I was really surprised by the fact that I think that if I were a teacher candidate and you asked me which of these things would I give up, about how little I was affected by that. And I think that speaks volumes. And it makes me realize how much I take for granted my privilege, and that the things that I chose to put down are all of the things other than the fact that I'm a white male heterosexual person, and how easy it is for me to just assume that that's something that I don't even need to put down. And so I was thinking about that, and also about this question that I saw pass by very quickly, Olwyn, on the slide just before, which I think is such a great one, about a moment when something happened and you wish you had spoken up. And it made me think about all of these moments in my experience as a beginning teacher, and even a not so beginning teacher, where I found myself feeling very unprepared for responding to situations where race was a part of what was emerging. I wish I'd responded, this part of what I wrote, I wish I'd responded differently that first year that I taught Huck Finn to a class with just one African-American student. And yes, Asamina, exactly what you said. Yep, that happened. Yep. I wish I had responded differently when the African-American students in another class scolded their friend for using African-American language. I wish I'd responded differently when I went to the wedding of one of my prospective teachers and found myself the only white male heterosexual man at my reception table. And what this tells me about my identity and my teaching is that there's much about my effect on others that I am not aware of unless I push myself to be, because it benefits me, and have to work to make those effects explicit parts of the discourse of our class in order to make sure that others are safe and supported, to name my privilege and also what I don't know. And when I consider what makes me uncomfortable, as you kind of invited us to do, I have to also do not only the imaginative, empathetic work to consider the analog for my students, but also that there might be other possibilities that I've never experienced. So that's what it made me think.
I'm going to share mine now, and this is well, it was a continuous work in progress because it's a part of my reflective journal, because I reflect on things. And when I started thinking about identity, I started thinking of some things that happened in childhood, and started to write about those things just so I could keep like a little track of everything that kind of makes up who I am. So being true to yourself has to start with knowing who you are and your values. My identity has many components, but I have to be firmly rooted in who I am to remain true to myself as I move in and out of different communities, cultures, and contexts. When I was younger and we moved to Utah, I experienced trauma from the way I was treated. So my 10-year-old self wanted to fit in so I could get in, but nothing ever connected for me. So I just stayed to myself and kept quiet. Where were my teachers? I was one of 2 Black people at my elementary school. I was taller than others, darker than others, smarter than others, because Ohio school curriculum was 2 grade levels ahead of Utah's curriculum at the time, and my hair was not like others. So I became a target. I would talk to my mom about what was happening in school, and we would pray, and I would be the bigger person. Where were my teachers? Until one day I had enough. I was tired of being the nigger and my friends being the nigger lover. There was a girl, Angel, who challenged me at every turn. She would go out of her way to harass me and talk about how she was going to beat me up because she didn't like Black people. The funny thing is, she was from Mexico, but had convinced herself, in my eyes, that she was not. She hung around the dominant culture, assimilated to the dominant culture, but saw me as a threat. Where were my teachers? She challenged me to meet her after school so we could fight, and I accepted the challenge. Being the only girl in a house full of boys, I never had to fight in my life, but I was tired. So I showed up at the designated spot, scared and alone. Where were my teachers? Everybody from school was there. And I went there and I stayed for about 10 minutes, but guess who wasn't there? Angel. So I thanked God and I walked home. When mom asked why I was late, I told her then, and there was a knock at the door, and it was Angel and her mother. Her mom made her apologize and talk to my mom about how it's been hard for them because they were the only brown faces at the school for a long time. After being called names and being harassed, her daughter started acting like the dominant culture because being the bully was her way of getting accepted. Where were her teachers? From that moment on, we were connected. We had each lived the same experience with the same group of harassers, but handled it in different ways. Learning that we had similar experiences gave us a bond. Where were our teachers? Throughout retelling this experience, this question kept coming to my mind because most of the harassment happened at school, in the hallways, in the classrooms, and outside of the classroom. Teachers should have an empathetic approach to education, but they should also be empathetic to the social and emotional health of students. It takes courage, confidence, and competence to teach. That includes academics and roles in society. Teachers must consider themselves to be a part of a student's community so they can connect to the student and build relationships. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what I've been doing with interns this year, how it's important to be in touch with your identity so you know how to move forward and teach students that don't come from the same experiences as you. And I hope you got something out of this little time tonight.
Definitely, that was just terrific, very, very thought-provoking, and makes me think of, about so many things, but especially in light of yesterday. You know, I was in class when and we were talking, and somebody sent this message in the chat via Zoom and said they're about to announce the verdict. And we had this moment in class, and I'm just wondering about you know, what that was like for other folks here, and you know, how we sort of respond, you know, how we can be responsive to the moment in our culture, the shift that is taking place in the ways that people are talking about things, and the ways that people are, some people I think are very unsettled by talking about those things, and that we haven't been talking about enough, especially in the last 8 years. So I just wanted to throw that out there if anyone wants to talk more about that. If not, that's okay too. Just wondering if that came up for anybody else yesterday. Olwyn, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Any other comments or responses?
That happened to you growing up, Olwyn?
The link, I put the link in there for the PowerPoint because there's some information on there, like from the social justice standards, if you want to use any of that in your classroom, and some other things that we've used with the interns can be adapted to use, especially with the high schoolers.
So in closing today, I wonder if we could all just take a minute and write down one thing that you gave and one thing that you got. And if you'd like to share, one or both of those, we can do that. And if you prefer not to share, you can just write them down. And then once we kind of reconvene on that, we'll say good night. All right, would anyone like to share something you gave or something you got or both?
I put that I hopefully gave a little insight into the world of supervising USF interns. And I got a challenge from Bob to make my writing into a poem, which is not a challenge. I will gladly accept that challenge because you know me and I love writing poetry.
I gave my ears and got to better know a colleague.
And I said I gave my ears and an open, receptive mind. And I got a great method to talk about critical issues in my classroom with and to help continue to build empathy and relationships. My paper, so.
This is Bob. I got to spend time with people who genuinely care about their students. And well, you already heard, I gave a challenge because I love that refrain, where were my teachers?
I gave an open mind and I got out of it a greater awareness of the impact that students feel from their teachers, and just making me, where I thought I was aware, even more aware of how each one of my students is feeling at all times in my classroom and the importance of them feeling safe and cared for.
I'm the only one who has not talked, but I'm shy. But I gave my attention and got just a new framework through which to think about and discuss identity in my classroom.
And I gave my genuine inquiry and interest And I got some great ideas for working with prospective teachers and just students of all ages to help them be aware and respectful and empathetic with others. Thank you again. Thank you all for being here. And I hope this carries you through the rest of your week and into next week, and that you'll join us again in 2 weeks for the next Fumes for Friday. Have a great teaching until then. Thank you so much, Olwyn.
Thank y'all. Good night.